Hello and welcome to the 10th Social Media Today Power Talk. It's been 10 months already in a year, and every one of them has been exceptionally unique. And perhaps this is even more unique than usual because instead of my two guests, due to technical reasons, which still may be resolved, I only have one. But that one more than makes up for it, and she's very well known across Google Plus and the Hangout community. But let's introduce the subject, because today we're talking about the visual power of Hangouts in social media marketing. And Hangouts have always been a very powerful branding tool, probably, arguably, the only viable shortcut you can take in terms of branding, whether you're a person or a company or a well-known brand. Ifat Cohen, who's the CEO of the Ifat Cohen Network, has been involved in Hangouts from the very beginning. And although not many people know that, my very first initiation to Hangouts was at an Ifat Cohen Hangout. And that was when I sort of the ice broke with me, and I sort of saw the power of Hangouts on the web. So with that, I'm going to bring in Ifat, and she's going to introduce herself.
Hey, David.
How are you today?
I'm awesome. Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. I'm delighted you're here. It's been a long, long time and a huge journey across the web, really, to get to this point. And you're in Israel at the moment, I
I am in Israel. It is high holidays, so I told my entire family to quiet down and let me do this interview. So hopefully you don't hear it.
Really appreciate this, and actually appreciate the time you've put in this. So let's get this started, really. And I'm going to start with an easy question on this one. We're talking about Hangouts and Hangouts on Air. They're a very powerful visual tool. And really, I want to start with your own perception of how powerful they are and how you think they're developing as we go along.
Well, maybe it's easier for people to think about video. We all know why video is so strong, and everybody is like really invested in YouTube and creating videos for themselves. And if you take that video, which is like a one-way broadcasting to the world, and then add live engagement where you're actually talking to people in real time all over the world, we're really removing borders, and we're connecting with like-minded people that can access our services in our mind and connect with us. This is like video on steroids, I think, and there's no editing, there's no software required, there's, nothing that you actually need to do except press, broadcast. So it's huge.
Okay, that's awesome. And here's, I love what you just said just now, because it is actually very easy to actually get involved in these things. And what I'd like to ask you is, how difficult is it to market or to fashion or to craft a marketing message that now is designed to basically span the globe, because anybody can see it at any time, real time or asynchronously, because they can watch it later. So how big is the challenge when it comes to that?
So I'm very unique in my perspective, I think, of marketing, because I think that marketing is really disappearing and it's turning more into education that leads to sales. So the challenge is that nobody likes to be sold, but everybody likes to buy. And we buy, right? So it's really funny because I was talking at UT, the University of Austin in Texas, to kids who are learning how to do PR and marketing. And I was asking them, what do you guys want to do when you grow, when you graduate? And they said, what was that? Some kind of a role where you create campaign. I can't remember what it was, but you create graphic campaigns in order to make, to get the sales coming in. And I said, great. So basically, you're creating graphic advertisement. Where are you going to put them? And they said, well, everywhere, on billboards, on TV, on social media. I said, okay, so all of you are in Facebook, right? Yes, because they're doing Facebook while I'm talking. And of course, and I'm like, okay, so how many of you are really clicking on the ads on the side of Facebook? And everybody said, we don't. One person said, I do, only to tell them not to show them to me again. And I said, so it's really interesting because you are planning to graduate doing things that are not working on you now. Where is the disconnect, right? And exactly. The disconnect is because we are still thinking marketing instead of like this connection.
That's really powerful stuff. And you mentioned education and you mentioned connection, and these two things tend to go hand in hand with understanding, really. And my next question is, okay, if we're transitioning away from marketing and marketers are turning into educators, how steep a challenge is that at a personal level? Because it must be a challenge.
How deep of a challenge it is as a personal level to educate instead of market?
Yes.
I think it's actually much easier because if you are so passionate and knowledgeable about whatever it is you're doing, you naturally talk about that and you naturally want to share it with people and you naturally want them to get what you're talking about, right? Like, why don't you get this? I had that when Google Plus first started 3 years ago, and I'm like, oh my God, Google Plus. And everybody's like, okay, enough, enough, and I'm like, you don't get it, you don't get it. So that getting thing is where the education comes in, right? I want to help you get what I'm seeing, and if I can educate you that way with my passion for whatever it is I'm doing, then there's no sell. It feels kind of like a friend sharing a great experience, right? And if I'm just sharing passionately, you're like, why is she so passionate about this?
That's awesome because actually I'm laughing a lot because I'm thinking back to the very first time I came across you at the Hangout, and you were very natural even back then and very easygoing, and whatever sort of doubts or second thoughts I may have had disappeared and evaporated on the spot. So here's my next question on this. I mean, you've had quite a journey through Google Plus. You started out from almost day one. You've been at it now for 3 years. You've had a lot of experiences. What are the biggest or the most difficult challenges you think you have had to solve as a person who uses Hangouts on air?
Well, I'm a woman, so I'm always worried about my hair, and I'm very conscious about the way I look. And with online video, it's really interesting because if you're just talking to a camera and doing video, you don't see yourself talking and acting. Whereas in video, you're always looking at yourself like, okay, is this in the right spot? So the biggest challenge is really getting over looking at yourself all the time, forgetting that, it's remember, it's not about you, it's not about me, right? It's about the conversation, it's about the relationship, it's what interests you. And I also don't do a lot of things that other people do, where they prepare for an interview and they learn about the person and they do research and they come up with the questions. For me, I choose people that I'm really curious about, and then I just ask the questions that I'm like, oh, really? So how did that happen? And then it really becomes an interesting conversation. The biggest challenge is to feel comfortable asking the questions, right? And remembering that, hey, this is going to turn into an evergreen video on YouTube forever. So if I'm asking questions that are not comfortable or not sound smart at the moment when I'm asking them to myself, getting over that, right? And just being okay with whatever happens in the moment. Um, I think the hardest thing, David, is that we lost our voice, all of us as humans, with social media. We look at social media and you have all these like 5 ways to write a great post, 7 ways to show yourself, position yourself as a brand, 10 ways. This is how the experts do it. And so you always worry that you're not the expert yet. You're not as good as. And Hangouts, starting very small with a community that loves you actually allows you to shine and bring yourself out there and just, and make it. Hey, Krista, she joined us. Hi.
Hello, Kristen. Hi. You're just joining us as we're moving along, and that's great. Just one more question to Ifat and Kristen. I'm going to come right to you, and thank you for joining us. Ifat, I think you made some fantastic points, and what I would like to sort of ask you now is, I mean, and in a lot of the things you sound very natural and you sound very easygoing and relaxed. And I know as a host, you have to juggle with a whole lot of questions and a whole lot of things which you have to do behind the scenes, including your own self-doubt sometimes as you ad lib, because as you said, very, in a very pointed way, you don't actually plan it. And that takes tremendous strength and self-confidence. So how do you create that self-confidence?
I don't think I created it yet. I get nervous every time I go on stage and start live, and I think we all do, and we just learn to live with it. I think, okay, so in the back of my mind, I always think, what can happen? The worst case scenario, I delete the video from YouTube and nobody knew it happened, right? Or I edit that section out. So the beautiful part about Google and Hangouts, and I think this is something that not many people know, is that there are no mistakes. You can edit your post, you can edit your videos, you can take them down, you can make them private. You can almost change everything. And so unless someone like right in the moment screen captures something stupid that I said, you'll never know. I always show up like a very, in shape person. So
Awesome. Okay, that's tremendous trust, I suppose, in yourself and also your audience, right?
yeah, my audience is awesome.
Okay, and here we go. Kristen, hello, and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
We just started and we're saying how powerful Hangouts are as a visual element. So if you start off with your own experience of Hangouts, how long you've been using them and what they've done for you?
Yeah, okay. Well, let's see, like less than a year. And I first started out just watching, and I started out watching Jason T. Weiser, and I was addicted to his on-track tips. I just fell in love with it. And then I think the next one that I saw was actually you and Chris Lang. And it was about big data. And I was just like, I had actually been in statistics at the time in school. And so it was just like, couldn't be too perfect. And I was just hooked. The reason why I'm here in social media at all in the first place is because I spent many years a prisoner in my home, and I was in a domestic violence situation, and got into school, so I was an online student, and just started reaching out any way that I could, and Google just seemed to be the most inviting, the most forgiving. Like everyone was just so willing to help, and that was just like huge to me. The relationships that would form so quickly. I think that's a huge way that I've used the Hangouts, is to reach out and get friendships.
That's awesome, and I think you're making a lot of important points here about the personal connection, the empowerment that comes with actually being able to connect so easily at that level with people across the world. And Ifat has mentioned the same thing in a broader scale when it comes to branding. So let's take the question to Ifat now, because it is all about relationship building, and it is all about creating the kind of connections which help you. And if you're a brand, if you're a company, Ifat, how would they go about doing that and still maintain the level of authenticity that you as a person can maintain?
I think, people forget that we are people at first. And it's very easy to do that as a business. You think you need to be so formal and so serious and so correct and so, LinkedIn style, resume speaking. But I got to tell you, I'm from Israel, and I came to Austin, and I never heard of Cadbury before, ever. And then Cadbury started working on Google Plus and became so huge and big and doing so awesome things. And they shared a picture of a box ring that you proposed to someone, right? And inside the box ring, there was an egg, a chocolate, like a Cadbury egg. And I said, wow, so imagine, ladies, you're sitting at dinner with someone you really care for, and then they give you the box, and you open it, and there's an egg inside. How do you feel? And Cadbury saw that, and they came in and they said, well, in that case, we're going to toss the guy and keep the egg.
Well, there you go. We have it on record. The value of guys less than a Cadbury's egg.
But isn't it awesome? Isn't that like a great way for a brand to find the conversations that are happening about them and connect with a person with humor and, just joy and stuff like that? Now, every time I go to think about chocolate, that's what I think about. There's humor, there's Cadbury, they connected with me on my post, they reacted, there was a connection. It was very easy. And so with Google Plus, it's so easy to find the conversations that people are having. Google is search, right? So if you're in Google Plus, you're searching for your own keyword, chocolate, whatever it is, holidays, sweets, gifts, and you see what other people are talking, and then you respond as a person. And I think this is one of the best things about working Google Plus, is because it's so easy. I'm so sorry. There's so much noise, and I don't know if you guys are.
Don't worry about it. I think it adds a fantastic element of authenticity to all this.
Yes.
I'm like, I don't know, how do I mute the noise and keep talking?
I drop my kids off at grandma, so.
It's a holiday and there's like 30 kids here, and it's like,
Wow.
but back to the conversation, it's so easy to find the keywords and then just share your opinion, right? Every time you read something, you have an opinion. So don't censor that opinion, share it as a person, right? And you just created conversation and content and a connection, and then just keep doing that. And there's a great tool, David, that you know and Christine knows, Circloscope, right? The best tool out there to just take the people who are talking about you and follow up with them.
Awesome, and that's fantastic. And I think that's invaluable advice when it comes to actually brands connecting in Google+, because frequently they say that they find it really difficult to understand as an environment and they're not sure which tools to use. And now if we get back to you, Kristen, you are relatively new to this, certainly not new, but you have had a more recent journey. And as you started through, what was the biggest challenge when you started using Hangouts on air?
Well, comment tracker. I needed help going through the different steps with that, and being able to balance the engagement, I think, between audience and keeping the focus, on the conversation that's here, because really the audience, when I come to a hangout, I come because I want to hear what people are saying. I think that sometimes people stress out too much about bringing in comments rather than talking about their topic,
Yep.
which people are coming and they're RSVPing to go to.
Excellent, excellent, that's fantastic. And here's let's start a few challenging questions. And the first one will go to Ifat. Ifat, the biggest thing we face today is trust. Without trust, nothing will actually happen. I won't tune into your Hangout and listen to you. You won't be able to get an audience. People won't really be prepared to take on board what you say. And trust is a very funny thing because it does require constant reinforcement. So how do you go about doing that?
This is why I really love Hangouts, because I can lie to you so well in text, right? I can come across as such a caring person when all I really want to do is take your money. Right? And
yeah, absolutely.
Just look at all the sales letter of internet marketing. How amazingly they care about you and then disappear once they have your money. Text is such a great way to lure you. And then audio is so easy as well, right? Because, oh my God, they turned the light off. Did you see that?
You have a glow of your glasses.
Right? Okay. Let me turn that on and I'll mute myself. Go to Kristen, I'll come back.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Since we were talking about tools, I'm wearing my Circle Count shirt.
Awesome. That's really cool. And Kristen, tell me, how do you decide whether to trust somebody you meet in a hangout or not, as the case may be?
Well, I'm a reader, so I always, before I pay any credence to what someone is saying, I look up everything possible. I Google it, and I look up everything and see what they're doing, how they're connecting with other people. Are they rude? Are they nice? How are they relating? And I think that has a lot to do with whether you can trust a brand or not, is how they treat the people in their streams.
David, you wanted a natural flowing conversation? You got it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the fact that the lights are back on now.
My 5-year-old decided this is the best way to grab my attention. Turn it on.
Well, there you go. There's a tip for everybody, right? In the attention economy, just put the lights out and people will pay attention to you.
There you go.
But Ifat, back to you. You were saying about how you essentially create a kind of trust in everything you do.
So I can look at you right now in Hangouts and really get your vibe, right? I can see whether you really care about me or whether you are just there trying to manipulate me. And that's really what I love about Hangouts. Even if you do Hangouts on air and I just watch the video, I can see the mannerism and all that stuff. I can sense the energy. And like Kristen was saying, if you do it one-on-one Hangouts, you really feel that. And so what's really interesting is that now, for me, it's so funny. I was when I connect with someone new, I say, let's do a hangout. And forget the phone call and all that stuff. I can see right away whether you're paying attention to me, looking at me, or busy doing something else. Are you listening? Are you not listening? Do you care? What's going on? And it's even better than face-to-face for me, because I don't have to spend the time driving. If you are really self-serving, I can finish the conversation in 10 minutes and just say, this is not a match, turn it off and back to my business. So I think the trust is being built very gradually in Google Plus through the +1, the comment, the sharing, and then the face-to-face hangout. And then you really know who the person is. So the process itself really allows you to get to know people. And I was just sharing a post today of how people in Google Plus start working together, right, and hiring each other and build businesses together. And that level of trust, that's like marriage, right? Building a business with someone. So,
and I think, and I'm interjecting here, I think you're actually mentioning in your description, essentially you're describing a community, and it's a global community, but the dynamics are the same. People are meeting each other, they're collaborating, they're having marriages of work, and sometimes real partnerships as well. So that's pretty amazing.
And for us, it's really interesting because we've been here for 3 years now, right? And we have the same people in our circles, and it's kind of like the same thing as in real life. You have the same people in circles, and so if someone has an issue with someone, you already know who to go and verify it with, right? Like, someone just sent me an article about someone we all know that has a lawsuit against him for fraud, for stealing money. And I'm like, oh my, I know the person. That's impossible. I reach out to other 5 people who know the person, and right away they're like, oh yeah, it's crap. Now imagine I didn't know, right? I didn't know that person. I read this article. I already erase him, and I move on to someone else. This is a really system of like people referring each other, trusting each other, recommending each other. I'm like, David, who do you work with for your web design? I go work with that person, right? It's very interesting, and it's across the board. Like the guy who started Circloscope is from Iran, right? And he could not work in Iran, so the money goes to his sister in Australia, and she transfers that, and then his business grew with people in the U.S. How amazing is that? Where does that happen?
It is. It's actually very disruptive, isn't it, in terms of the global culture and economy.
But it connects people, right? It connects people on the human level, right? Not the status level, not the national level, not the language, like the human, the heart-to-heart thing.
Yeah, it's like the interconnectedness and the helping. That's what I love about it so much, is just that relationship of helping. And I just think it's amazing. And I don't see it anywhere else. I really don't.
It is fairly unique. You're absolutely right. I think we all love that. And a lot of the problems come when we actually, and I use the word problems within inverted commas, when we come to describe this culture, which is so difficult to describe, to people who haven't actually experienced it. And I'll take this question to Kristen and say, when you actually meet somebody who doesn't know Google Plus and certainly hasn't tried Hangouts on there, how difficult is it to actually describe this to them and get them to try and use it?
Well, I just take them through the process with me. I pull up a YouTube of one of my Hangouts and just say, hey, will you watch this with me? And I think some people, like, I hook them, and some people aren't interested in the subject. Like, some of my kids are like, Mom, really, this is boring. But then some of my other kids are like, yeah, this is so cool. Really, like, I really, my kids are my social group. But
like a focus group, right?
Yeah. I'm a mom.
Same question to Ifat, and we're going to come back to motherhood in a minute, because I think that's also a challenging aspect. But let's take, Ifat, the same question to you. When you actually describe the environment and the tools they can use to people who haven't experienced them, how difficult is it to actually get them to overcome their own reticence and actually use them?
It's very difficult. It's extremely difficult. Many people think that Google Plus is just another social network. So why, other people are not used to engagement. They're used to marketing. So it's like, oh, I have a social media guy who posts 5 times a day, and that's it. There's a mind shift that has not happened yet in business, small business especially, but in business as a whole, moving from marketing to engagement. And because that is not there yet, people think, how do I create ads? How do I create posts? How do I create content? How many times do I need to tweet a day? You know, how much can I automate so that I can have my life? And I think what's happening is that our life and our business are the same, and people are not yet really there. So maybe if they keep seeing celebrities using Hangouts, they might. Did you know that the Pope had a Hangout the other
Yes, I
day?
did. Yeah, exactly. I did, and I thought that was fantastic.
Amazing, right?
Yeah.
If they keep seeing that happening, maybe they'll get it. Another thing is, for businesses, they don't understand the entire Google suite, you know, and how everything really works together, and how much it can reduce IT costs and time and all that stuff. And it might be that the IT person understands that and doesn't want to expose the business to it, because it eliminates so much of what they need to do. I mean, Hangouts just eliminated, like, the telco, the cell phone providers. You can now, as long as you have data, totally not use a cell phone provider, right? And you can make calls from the computer anywhere, from your phone as well. So it's very disruptive, and people don't like change. They're like, oh, I have a job to do. I don't need to think about that.
Exactly, change is a challenge. But let's discuss a little bit motherhood, because I mean, both of you have children, and both of you balance. I mean, life now, as Ifat has very well pointed out, is not really compartmentalized into work and home and different things. Everything tends to go together. So how challenging is it to be a mother in terms of both the allocations and demands being made on your time, and also your own ability or your own recognition of your responsibility to your children in terms of the education you need to give them and the awareness which you need to create in them. And let's start with Kristen on that one, please.
Okay, so if I already mentioned integration, there are so many amazing tools that we have right here, just built into the platform. And when my kids have a question about homework, it's very simple to make sure that we have the safe search on, and to go to Google and look up ways, like, it might not even be like asking for the answer, but just for a site, to like a learning site. And I feel very confident when I do that I'm going to get several different answers. I'm going to have choices. And that's what I like to present to my children, is that choice. I think it's very, very important for them to be able to know that they have options. And the way that our world is going, it's important to introduce children to technology and to show them the right way to do it, and to stay away from, certain things, like stay away from all the spammy stuff, like make sure that, you've got your safety measures in place.
Awesome. And same question to Ifat, please.
For me, it's interesting because I really love what I do, and my husband doesn't. And so for him, he tells my kid that he would love to not ever work and just be home and play with him. And I need to explain why I love doing this, and that he needs to be away for a second because I really enjoy my work. Combining both is for me, it's a little bit of a challenge. I need to put him away. Hey, you're going to daycare. Mom has her entrepreneurial life. When she's done with that, we can do stuff together. It's always, I don't know, it's always maybe for women, I don't know, Kristen, if you feel the same way. It's kind of like, well, what do I put first, right? My career, my passion, and then my motherhood. How do I combine them both? And there are apps that teach him how to program, so maybe we can, as long as he grows up, we can work together.
Yeah, definitely.
No easy answers on this one, I accept that. And I think both of you, from what I've seen of your work, are doing a marvelous job at actually balancing everything. And I really don't know how you do it, but it seems to be working. Okay, we're getting near our wrapping up time, so let's start in reverse order with Kristen, please. Kristen, if you were to tell somebody new how to embrace Hangouts on air, what would you say?
How to embrace them? Go with your curiosity. Just look up the subjects that are interesting to you and see what's out there, because there are amazing things out there. And if someone's not covering it, then you have the power, you have the ability to create an event. And most likely, if you have an interest in something, there are going to be other people that will have that too.
Awesome, that's really cool. And Ifat, same question to you now, exactly the same question. How would you suggest somebody embraces Hangouts on air?
I would say start watching them and engaging in the comments, and then you'll find a conversation happening in the comments, and then eventually you'll feel comfortable joining someone else's Hangout, and then just experience it not on your own skin, but through someone else's tears and sweat. And then when you're comfortable seeing yourself on camera, comfortable with the technology, and feel that you want to share something, then start your own broadcast. And you know what? Actually, we don't really have to have it so interactive, guys. You can start doing a hangout just you, instead of creating videos. Just create like a 10-minute hangout. Press the broadcast, see how you feel, what does it do to you, if you like it, if there's any reaction out there. Test the market. I mean, this is a really easy, cheap, not time-consuming way of finding out if people care about the same thing you care about.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And with that, we're reaching the end of our Hangout today. This is the 10th Social Media Today Power Talk for Social Media Today. We have only 2 left in the year, and we've got 2 fantastic guests who are going to be a big surprise to everybody coming up for next month. Thank you very much for watching. This is David Amerland saying goodbye.